Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining me for another monologue in which I talk to you. I quite enjoy, well, I very much enjoy, I should say, these little chats. They've sort of morphed into a much more gentle chat rather than perhaps in recent times where I was perhaps a bit more urgently trying to get messages across. I have to laugh that somebody was saying how pretentious it was that I smoke my pipe as if to try and look more intellectual, and this is generally quite lovely to smoke the pipe and have a chat at the same time. It's sort of my first pipe of the day, and I've set up the camera and the lights and what have you, and I want to chat to you, and I want to relax. And smoking the pipe, it gives you an excuse to sort of think of your words that you want to use while doing something. Whereas you could, of course, just sit there and be in silence as you're trying to sort of collect your thoughts. I don't write a script, as many people do. Anyway, so today I wanted to talk about I think there's sometimes this frustration from people who are, let's say, aware of some of the truths that are going on, and a lot of the other people don't know, and people get very frustrated because they want to share that knowledge, and other people just don't want to understand or have cognitive dissonance. They can't see it. They think you're raving mad. They think you're a conspiracy theorist, and they think that what you're saying is enough to have you put into an institution because you're just bonkers, raving mad. They understand what life is, and because they understand what life is, or how they've been told that life is, or their experience of life is, that there's nothing beyond the sort of four corners or the four walls of that life, that narrow sort of way. And then there's other people who have seen the light from somewhere else, and they say, "God, look at that! Actually, these things are not true, and everybody thinks they are true." Now, many of those get impassioned to want to be able to share that truth, and then the other people who are in the box, as it were, or in the narrow alley, they go, "I don't know what you're talking about. I understand what life is. We've got to do this, we've got to do that, and I'm all right with it." And yet, if the truth were known, their lives would be so much better. But it's almost as if because they cannot conceive of anything else other than the direction that they're in, that it could be better, and so they stay in it. If that vague, rambling description does it. So I was thinking, why do we fail? Why do those that want to share information which will benefit others in a positive way by knowing things, why do we fail? And clearly, my experience over the last 2.5 years, where I sort of switched from going around the country, bald explorer, looking at landscape heritage and nature, observing things, not just nature things, but observing history, politics and things, and then slowly becoming aware that things weren't right, and then going down rabbit holes. And I admit, some of those rabbit holes are just a waste of time. And I think many of those rabbit holes have been put there to keep people who are looking for the truth occupied so they don't find the truth. And then you realize, well, which is the truth? Where is it? Where is the truth of what's going on? It certainly isn't what is being maintained on mainstream media. Although, again, people in the narrow alleys still watching mainstream media, they might have that sense, well, we can't trust journalists, we can't trust politicians. They've got that grounding right, yet they still obey the politicians and they still switch on to mainstream media. And so you know that there's a kernel in them that is potentially open. But when you push this on them and you say, hey, look, here's some truth. This is what's really going on. These things over here are not good for you. Or in the water there's something, or they're doing something in the sky. Even though you can point to it and say, look, it's there, staring you in the face. And people are going, oh, no, that's just something else. Because mainstream media have said, and, you know, wouldn't we all be dead by now? And wouldn't we all be coughing up our blood? And the human body is such an amazing thing. It's always trying to heal itself. And because these things around us, the toxic environment we live in is marginally toxic. It's more toxic than would be useful to us, but it's marginally toxic. It's not like walking into a room that has poisonous gas in and you immediately go, and so people don't notice it. And it's very easy to keep people dumbed down, which is, you know, very sad, isn't it? So why is it that we fail? And I think to myself, there are some people who are obviously receptible to it. You just have to find the right button. They may have 100 buttons and you're pressing each one slowly, daily, one day after day, and you get press this one, press this one, press this one, nothing. And then ding, something triggers it. And they go, oh, I didn't know that. And potentially then they're on the journey. But there is, it is difficult because I think more people have been, it's so ingrained that life is what it is, that they can't see beyond it, that even though you might push one button, they kind of go, yeah, maybe 9/11 was an inside job, and then you think, hang on a minute, just if you even conceive it might have been an inside job, what does that tell you? That a government would even conceive to do what it did on the scale that it did, and I don't want to say this in too many words because the old algorithm, we love jumping around that, but you know what I mean, the heinous crime, that if it could do that, why could it not do other things? And it's only, I suppose, the time that has passed since 9/11 or JFK that allows people to say, yeah, that must have been it, but it's from another era. It's from a time they wouldn't do it now. They couldn't get away with it now. They couldn't do that sort of thing. But the fact that you've even accepted that they might have done that sort of thing has the mindset of those people. Well, it's different people in power now, isn't it? It's different people. Are they any better? Look at the mob that we have in at the moment, the mafia that we have in England. I don't like to say UK because that's just a corporation. Mind you, they are of a corporation. I mean, I live on the earth. Just to be clear, I live on the earth, on a landmass that's called Britain. I don't live in the UK. Maybe my legal fiction does. But what are you talking about? Legal fiction? What's all that about? Why do we fail? Is we try too hard, I think, is the ultimate thing. We try too hard to convince people. We want people to be convinced. We want people to know the truth. But we fail because people are just not ready for it. They laugh. Look at the comments on YouTube channels like mine that try to help. People laugh. They like to deconstruct it. They like to laugh. They like to make out that we're loonies. This has happened all the way through history, by the way, and those people they thought were loonies and they locked them up, turns out they had something to say. And some of them may be paid to do that, and some of them are just too defensive and cannot cope that somebody might have something that's true, and they'll say all the things that they do say. And I don't blame them. I don't blame you people out there who think I'm raving mad or I'm a loony or I'm nuts. The one thing that I hope that you would appreciate is that we all have the right to say the things that we have, because if they shut my mouth and people like me, potentially they could shut your mouth. And what are they putting into your mouth that is only permissible to say? freedom of speech is absolutely, freedom to make a complete arse of yourself ought to be out there. And we can see that is being ever shut down. And people will, and again, that they'll say, oh, no, it's not being shut down. It is to stop, vulnerable people being affected by all the crap that people like you, Richard, are talking about. And then I think to myself, well, you do not hold your fellow man in much esteem if you think that they'll be influenced too much by the likes of me. Why do we fail? We try too hard. And I think this is one reason why I now do these more rambling things and I smoke my pipe. And I think that there is an urgency to get people to do it, because we don't want to be in this dystopian future that has been marked out for us by these unelected, unaccountable bureaucrats with billions of pounds who seem to be the ones that are pulling the strings. There is an urgency to stop the 15-minute cities, to stop the nanotechnology that may be floating about in the veins of various things, biological bipeds, let's just say, trying to dance again, which of course may sound completely farcical to many. And the more we try, the harder we try, sometimes the less we fail. But there is a growing number of people who are beginning to wake up. And the evidence, if we can evidence things, of course, it's so much better. But even then, facts, let me show you these facts, let me show you this graph, let me show you these figures. People switch off to that. I think possibly one way of a myriad of ways to do this is to drip feed, just as they did. They drip feed, the dark forces, the manipulators, the parasites, the people who would want to control us and be rid of us. They have very slowly drip fed their stories through the mainstream media, through advertising. An example to say, for example, that the UK is no longer principally a white country. It's not a racist statement, I don't believe, to say that we were. You go back in the 1940s, and we were all of one race, really. We were all very Western, all very white, very pale, and all of that. However, the drip feed of advertisements and television programs has given the impression that every family is now, in some way, mixed race of some description. I don't believe that's true. I just don't believe it's true. I don't see it as I go about. But that's the drip feed message. Now, I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. I've got nothing against anybody unless they're there with a samurai sword trying to hack my head off or whatever. That's not the issue. But the issue is where they paint, but it's also the same with history, where they paint events that are supposed to have happened, which didn't happen. And it's a drip feed in which they are educating, if you like, in a untruth. And I feel that perhaps the way for people who want to reveal the truth need to do the same. Slowly, in ordinary conversations everywhere, just simple and, like, gosh, they're at it again. Looking up at the sky. Oh, they're at it again. What do you mean? No, they're doing this. As if it's everybody knows. As if it's rather than going, oh my God, look up there, they're spraying the skies and they're sending down aluminium and barium and various other toxins and microplastics and who knows, nanotechnology. And we're all, instead of that sort of frightening way of doing it, maybe just in amongst everybody, you just, oh look, they're at it again. And the more times they hear that from lots of different people, it becomes a reality. Oh yeah, they're at it again. What are they at? I don't know. Everyone keeps saying they're at it again. Well, I think it's because they're spraying the skies. Well, what do you think they're spraying the sky? We don't have time. We've got to get this done urgently. But perhaps that is a way, subtly, slowly, to make it more everyday, rather than, hey, look, here's something more worrying. The sort of Russell Brand approach. I don't know. I mean, I may be wrong. I often am. I don't care. I do my bit. And I enjoy smoking the pipe, and I enjoy talking to you, and I hope that I can continue. But I don't want to continually frighten and talk about these horrific things. There's lots of other things to talk about. I was talking about being grateful, gratitude yesterday. You know, there's so many other things that I think are also important that we address as people, rather than just all this horrifying stuff. Anyway, thank you for listening. If you did, I hope it was relevant. If not, I'm sorry. Till next time, goodbye.